This is State of the Fish, a live call-in show for Miami Marlins fans, brought to you every week by the Fish Stripes Twitter account. Here's your host, Grant Kiefer.
Hey.
A good enough game, not a great game, but a good enough game. I don't put that on him. He got on base too. It wasn't a bad game from Stallings, but Sandy Alcantara, not on point. We'll just go game by game here. Eli, what did you see from game one? Just any general thoughts from opening day?
From the pitching matchup side, originally, about halfway through the game, I was getting vibes similar to, 2021, where it was Sandy versus Glasnow, and both of them were pretty great. And that game was decided in the later innings by the bullpen. But as it went on, the second time through the order, and then especially when Sandy began the third time through the order, it also looked more like last year's opening day, where he just did not have his control the way that he does when he's on top of his game. That's what makes him special, is that he has such nasty stuff and so many different pitches he could go to, and then he could also get himself into favorable counts. And in this case, that's what was lacking a little bit, is that he just wasn't throwing the pitches where he needed to. That eventually came back to bite him just enough. And even though what was the nice surprise is to see the offense finally wake up in the bottom of the sixth inning, and the Marlins were down 3-0, and then pretty suddenly just erased that whole deficit. That was very exciting to see, with Cooper hitting that home run. With Cooper last year, the big negative about his season is that he just wasn't hitting for power. And right off the bat, he has this one against Scherzer that gets you really optimistic about what he could be in the middle of this lineup. And when it comes down to the end of it, Tanner Scott didn't really have it out of the bullpen. They ended up losing that bullpen battle, so that makes a difference. In the end, all things considered, not a terrible showing to start it off, because between that home run, Luis Arraez doing what he ultimately did, like all 4 games of the series, just being that on-base machine, that was encouraging to see, considering obviously how much they invested to acquire him in the first place. Yeah, all things considered, just one of those days where you get like a C effort from Sandy. If I had to give it a grade, maybe even a little worse than that by Sandy standards. So most days you just know that he's going to be better than that, and he's going to be facing a weaker opponent than the Mets. So usually that's a game that's a lot more winnable for this team. Nothing too much to complain about from that very first game.
All right, and you bring up a good point. Something that I keep reminding myself is to not really get too all up in arms of this series, or not act like the sky's falling. This is the New York Mets. They just played. It was a 4-game series against the Mets, and there were points in all 4 games where it felt like they could have won it. Tied 3-3 on opening day. Felt like you could have won it. Won on Friday. They got up at some point on Saturday, or within a run. No, they were up on Saturday. After did Soler hit a home run? I forget who hit one. My memory's getting bad. Anyway, Sunday or today, I felt like that there was a point where the bases were loaded, no outs. Like, okay, maybe they can do this. But then again, it is early. But some disheartening signs early. We'll talk on the more positive note. The Friday's game was a really good game. Lazardo, really, really, really good showing. Defense looked pretty good besides the one Jazz blunder, but he made up for it after hitting a home run. Bullpen looked pretty good. I really like what we saw from AJ Puck outside of one bad pitch. I thought that he showed signs of what an actual closer for the Marlins could be.
It was pretty exciting and encouraging from him in that situation. A very awkward spot to be, knowing that this is just not the usual traditional setup from a bullpen standpoint. These guys don't know exactly when they're getting into a game. They're not assigned to a certain ending like so many guys were under Mattingly for those years. It's an adjustment to get ready at the right time. And we know that Puck missed a little time in spring due to injury that slowed him down just a little bit. It's clear that he was able to make up for lost time well in time to be what seems to be, the best version of back to 100% right now. He did allow that solo. He allowed the home run to Pete Alonso during that inning. Obviously not a perfect ending. It's just the quality of his stuff and those other matchups against Lindor and against Kana and getting the final out against McNeil. I'd say there's more good than bad in that one inning to leave you pretty encouraged that he's going to be an upgrade over the guys that they had pitching high leverage innings last year. The biggest story of that game, the teal throwbacks looked immaculate out there, and they brought the good vibes with them. Luzardo having the kind of outing that he did, I've been extremely high on him coming into this season, and that is kind of what it looks like. Really, the only blemish was that sixth inning. He finally began to fade a little bit with his control, and that's why he couldn't get through the inning. But for the first 5 and a third out of that, he was just terrific. That's the kind of pitcher that going up against the same lineup that obviously Sandy went against the day before, and the other guys went up against on Saturday and Sunday with mediocre results. The fact that Luzardo stood out as much as he did, that just validates everything that we've already saw from him late last year. If he is healthy, he is, to me, the very clear number 2 in this rotation. And I think on a performance basis, he could do everything he did last year, if not even a little bit better. He is really breaking out into a complete pitcher.
Yeah. And he will definitely be the number 2 pitcher if the guys who also pitch this weekend don't start to get it together. Although Rogers looked fine, but we'll go to Saturday's game. Edward Cabrera, a little bit of a shaky showing. Command wasn't really there. I thought Nick Fortes called a good game for him, but lots of mound visits. Mel had to try and calm him down. And he just looked a little bit rattled, didn't really look like himself. And then offense started to not produce late in that game. Just a lot of things piled up towards the end of that game, where it was early on in the first half of that game, you really thought the Marlins had a really good shot at going up 2-1 in the series and all of a sudden being over 500, which I feel like we never hear that in the same sentence as Miami Marlins anymore.
Almost every year they get off to a shaky start to the season, and that's just because the team, in most cases, it boils down to the team just not being very good. In this case, that was probably the most frustrating loss of the series for sure. Going in that game 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, Arise getting on 4 different times and not scoring in any of those opportunities. Only the Fortes home run was all their run production in that game. That was the one that certainly, out of the 3 losses in this, that's the one that felt winnable, even though the final score was a 4-run margin of defeat right there. Well, yeah, with Edward, that's kind of the risk that you have with him. He, compared to Sandy, he, as sloppy as Sandy was with locating his pitches, Edward was even more worrisome in this one. Only threw 47% of his pitches for strikes. And that translates pretty well to completion percentage in football, where if you're below 50% in this day and age, that's pretty disastrous, especially if you're a starting pitcher. It's just not sustainable at all. The bright side is that even when guys make contact with him, it's so weak. It's so difficult to square him up because of the quality of his stuff. That's why I always go back and forth with him in terms of what I realistically expect from him moving forward. The thing is, he's just usually not going to allow much damage because he is so hard to make solid contact against. At the same time, if he has games like this, he's just not going to go deep into the game. When you put so many runners on with walks, there's a lot of downside. You can make very minor issues or just get unlucky, and it could open up the floodgates. With Edward, you hope to see a little bit more progress. He had some of these starts last year, even mixed between his dominant ones. He is to me like the most difficult pitcher to really get a grip on, considering the good and the bad that comes with it. They got all these runners on base and just couldn't do very much with it in this game. We saw Jesus Sanchez and De La Cruz both starting. This was the game that Avi Garcia took a seat. There's a lot of, I think, positive vibes about this lineup when it came out, and they just couldn't get that critical hit. And so it was a very familiar story to what we saw the early part of last year. It's 6 different Mets pitchers, like almost all of them danced with some trouble at various points. That was simply put the frustrating one of this series.
Yeah, you want to talk about a guy who danced around trouble, but magically got out of it, or you could say ghosted his way out of it with that ghost work ball. Kodai Senga, what an outing for him, but early on, gave up a runner pretty quickly, allowed the first 4 Marlins batters to get on base, which included Avisail Garcia by some miracle. And he got out of it, bases loaded. Marlins didn't score any runs. First off, you look at the first inning today. Trevor Rogers gives up 2 runs, which were pretty much all self-imposed. He had a bad throw. He loaded the bases up after what could have been a double play. Pitched, I think, like 20 pitches after the get out of that inning. It seems so unnecessary, but he settled in pretty well after that. I like what I saw from him after that. Or it feels like a polar opposite of one of the starts last year, whereas he would get through the lineup the first time pretty much unscathed. A lot of times he put a base 9 and put down 9 right away last year, and then got shellacked the second and third time through. It felt like he was getting really predictable, but today that wasn't the case. He got hit pretty well today and started to settle in a little bit more. That was a story for both pitchers, and it's just pretty disappointing that he had the bases up, heart of the order coming up in the 5th spot, 5, 6, 7 still left that come up in the inning, a chance to take the lead or at least tie it, bare minimum tie it, and they didn't. I just felt like the story today. I mean, even in the 8th inning when it seemed like the game was over, it was 5-1. They still had runners on, had a chance to get to within 1 with 1 swing of the bat potentially, and it just didn't happen.
First taste of Senga, because I don't think they faced him during any of the spring training games, and he's going to be here for a while. You got to get used to him, at least the next 3 years until he could potentially opt out of his contract. And the next 5, for whatever reason, things don't go swimmingly. He is nasty stuff. He is in a lot of rotations. He's a guy that's near the top of a rotation, and with the Mets, he's certainly buried, at least among American fans, in terms of his height, his profile, and what we know about him. But you can see it on display that he backed himself into a pretty bad spot immediately. The Marlins had 1 run in already with the bases loaded and nobody out, and they didn't score the rest of the game. Like, the odds of that happening, still having 27 outs to play with, having the bases loaded at that time, and getting nothing the rest of the way, even by this team standards, that is pretty pathetic. It's tough to watch. This is the opposite of the Saturday game. We're coming into it, everybody expected the worst from this lineup. I think I'm with you. You're with me. I think a lot of people are together that it doesn't make sense in any situation to have Avi Garcia batting 4th in your lineup. You just don't want him to bat a lot because he's not good at batting over the last year plus. There's been, certainly in spring, there was no sign of any change in that regard. You need him to actually prove himself and do something before you give him like all these plate appearances in front of people. And unfortunately, the way that they put this lineup together, like the guys below him, honestly, weren't super inspiring either. With Yuli Gurriel still has a lot to prove to bounce back to what he used to be. And he had a couple very uncharacteristic strikeouts in this one. When you wrap up this whole series together, in 3 of the 4 games, I believe, what just stood out is how many strikeouts there were. This is a team during the offseason with the moves that they made, they positioned themselves to be one of the elite teams in making contact. And for that that didn't really show itself much at all during this opening series. Just on a case-by-case basis, you could point to a few guys, with Arise being the obvious one, who did what they were advertised to do. But as a whole, that was a big deficiency that held them back in these opportunities, is not putting the bat on the ball when they absolutely needed to. So in this case, This was not a lot of positives from this game. Aside from that first inning, as you mentioned, the whole feel of it was non-competitive, even though we're kind of within reach. It shouldn't. It really didn't fall that far behind in any one aspect of it. And with this Trevor Rogers start, I can't feel too strongly one way or another. It looked kind of similar to last year, but certainly the way that he straightened himself out that second time through the lineup, how efficient he was in that second, third, and fourth inning, that was encouraging. So some positives, some negatives. I think if you're being realistic, you just don't want to expect too much of him moving forward. He's going to obviously get a very long leash to steady himself in this rotation. The main, even during his rookie year, one of the key questions is whether he can work deep into games, whether he's efficient enough with his pitches and missing enough bats. In this one, from an efficiency standpoint, not too great. Using on average, 4 pitches for every plate appearance. You're just not going to go very deep into a game if that's the case. Yeah, just a really, really shaky outing from him. And even so, it was one that you would have expected a little bit more from this offense, given what they had going early. So, yeah, yeah, pretty sour note to end it off on.
Yeah, and this was one of the games coming into the series. If you guys watched the show on Thursday, we all made our series predictions. I said split. This was one of the games I kind of chalked up to be a loss. I figured that they would struggle to make contact against Senga. I didn't know what extent that was. I thought it was going to be extremely wrong in the first inning based on how that went. I want to be pleasantly surprised by being wrong, but it kind of turned out to be just like that. I think the parts I'm really most frustrated about is Saturday. That just felt like such a winnable game. You kind of felt that, they weren't going to get the run the support for Sandy. I felt like today was going to be a loss going into this, but I said, okay, Friday, Saturday, those feel like winnable games, especially after Verlander got put on the injured list. That felt attainable, but they fumbled the bag. It's just the way it went on Saturday. It's frustrating in many regards there. But do you think this could be a sign of things to come, or is this just they played the Mets and they just have to get into the swing of things?
The strikeouts, I don't think are anything more than kind of a freak occurrence. I think there's going to definitely be more balls in play overall moving forward, given who they'll be facing in the near future and in most of their matchups. There's going to be fewer strikeouts. Like that's the one thing I can believe in pretty strongly. I don't know. Maybe I zoned out. I don't think we touched on Jazz's defense, and there's a couple different situations where you kind of like, you just remind yourself that that's a weakness that they just neglected to solve this offseason, and that's going to continue to follow them around. The clearest example being today's game on that line drive to center field, which when you look at like the details behind it, it wasn't a super easy play, but it was one that somebody with his athleticism probably should have been able to catch up to. That's something that is, I think, unfortunately going to continue going around with them. And as long as they're playing a lot of Jorge Soler in left field, and it's just not going to be a good defensive outfield on top of the questions that we already have about the infield coming into this year and guys playing out of position. So the defense didn't kill them in the series that much, but I think it was probably if not for Garrett Cooper, that one Garrett Cooper game that did a lot to like raise your excitement level about the defense. And then today there was the Jesus Sanchez catch in left field that was legitimately fantastic. That was one of the better catches I've ever seen from Jesus Sanchez. So it wasn't like super prevalent in this series, but I think the Mets certainly did more to save runs with their gloves than the Marlins did, and in most of their matchups moving forward, I think that's going to be the case as well. They'll have to like outperform their opponents in a lot of other different ways to compensate for the defensive liabilities and the miscommunications they have.
Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating, but it doesn't get any easier. You got the Twins for 3 games coming into town, and I personally am high on the Twins this year. I love what they did this offseason. Of course, losing Arise sucks for them, but I like the way that they restructured their roster. I think they'll win the AL Central, so no easy games early on. Then have to play the Mets again this weekend in a 3-game series for their opening series at Citi Field. So it's going to be rowdy for that one. They have the Phillies after that, I believe.
Yeah, off the top of my head, the Phillies and then the Diamondbacks soon after that. But I mean, we're doing these once a week, so we don't have to look too far ahead.
But yeah, right. It's just I just wanted to think about how it's just not going to get any easier this month. And the second half of the schedule, just like last year, is extremely tough. But now that you have to play everyone, you have to take the opportunities while you can. And they were going to play the Twins anyways, even if the MLB didn't go for this new schedule format this year. But against AL teams where you have these quote-unquote new games, it feels like one that you should get. And we'll touch on that more on the stream tomorrow. I won't be on, but it feels like a series where if you get 2 out of 3, you're in the right spot. But if they only win 1 out of 2 in this series, depends on how it happens. Record-wise, I feel like you're not really in a good spot. And there's going to be some tough pitching matchups. I know it's Malley tomorrow. I don't know who Tuesday is, but Pablo Lopez is Wednesday. Is Sonny Gray Tuesday? No, Sonny Gray pitched this weekend. I don't know who it's Kenta Maeda. You put out a tweet. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Kenta Maeda on Tuesday. Still, that's a pretty solid pitching lineup for the Twins. I like what the Twins did this offseason and within the past 365 days to put that together. But this will be another tough series, right?
I would think so. Yeah, the Twins are a pretty decent team. I think relative to the rest of their division, they're a pretty hot pick to win the AL Central this year. Just a very well-rounded team. And I think their bullpen is just as much of a strength as their rotation depth. It's just a pretty solid all-around team. They eventually, when the whole saga, like the dust settled, they did bring Carlos Correa back. So him being in the middle of everything is obviously very valuable to them. They certainly are going to miss Arise for everything that Luis Arise is. Even the Marlins, he is not totally replaceable from the Twins' perspective. They're playing Nick Gordon pretty frequently, and they're trying to teach Joey Gallo how to be a first baseman. That was one of their more that's one of their X factors this season is Joey Gallo and how close he comes to being the best version of himself versus the one that last year looked like a player that was fading out of the league altogether. So they have a lot of boom and bust in them, with Byron Buxton being even the most obvious example because of when he's on the field, he's amazing. And for now, Buxton has been healthy starting the year. So we'll see him. And I imagine he's going to have as big an impact on this series as any individual hitter that they have. The headliner is Pablo's return. He pitched pretty well in this ballpark with Venezuela in the WBC. So it's not his first return to Miami, but certainly this will feel different actually going against so many of his former teammates. So it's hard to emphasize enough how interesting that's going to be. It's going to be fun talking to him tomorrow, as I'm sure who we've covering the game are going to get to speak to him about his mix of emotions coming back here. That's probably the little storyline besides the X's and O's of the series themselves. That's Pablo's return is going to be very intriguing considering how well liked he was by basically everybody in the Marlins organization.
I feel like tomorrow is going to be the one day where you see all the Marlins clubhouse practically empty and everyone's just in line they go get into the away clubhouse. So it's going to be a sight to see. Wish him luck in his return back. Wednesday could be a really good pitching matchup, and it sucks it's a daytime game if you're working or have school. You're not going to be able to watch. But Pablo versus Luzardo, 2 Venezuelan pitchers in that ballpark. Familiar faces all around. It's going to be a fun one. Of course, Luis Arise going up against some of his former teammates too. Can't rule that out as well. So it'll be a fun series to watch for sure. I won't touch too much on the Mets series. We'll get to the fan part here just because we just saw the Mets for 4 games in a row. It'll be another 3. After this, I don't think the Marlins see the Mets again until September. So if you're tired of the Mets early on, they get a good break from it with the way the new schedule format is. Went down from 19 games per division fell to 13. So not nearly as much Mets, Braves, Nationals, Phillies this year. So we'll get to the fan part here. Saw a lot of you guys requested. Thank you for being patient. But first, I want you to consider becoming a super follower, super subscriber, whatever we're calling it nowadays. Please consider. It is the best deal out there on Twitter. It is $3 a month. It's as cheap as you can go, and there are so many different perks. You get lifetime access to the gift database. You get you can be in fantasy leagues with us, compete against others that are super followers, super subscribers, and win really cool prizes. The prize for our fantasy baseball league for super followers this year is Marlins tickets, field level, not just any tickets, field level tickets for either 2024 season or potential 2023 postseason game. You can make your jokes about that if you want. It is still possible. It's 158 games left. But what else we got? That's a perk. Predictions. That's another way to win prizes. Every single series, you get to make a prediction for the series. We'll send them to Eli, and you can compete with us. We have that pin at the top. A lot of super followers in there that made their picks. Some of our very own that are in here right now have won some points. Parker, I don't know if he's in here right now, but yeah, he's tied for the lead. He got Mets 1-3-1. There's endless perks.
I don't know if it's endless. It's a lot. It's a very generous amount for what you're doing to support us.
Amount.
Yeah, daily game notes
I forget
prior to every single
game.
game.
We say it.
Well, we're calling it super subscribers, but during entering every single game, updated game notes about a variety of things with the Marlins and the way that the relevant stats that you want and the personal information about the players that gets you to know them even better. So a shout out to somebody named John who became a super subscriber for us today. I know he has like split allegiances between the Marlins and the Twins, and even he is pitching in to support us. So we appreciate that.
Tough series for him coming up. Man, I would be conflicted.
Yeah.
Real quick before we actually get to the fans this time, Mr. Isaacson here. You're at the ballpark for was it just opening day? I know you went as a fan for a couple games.
Yeah, I was there opening day. I did the pregame coverage, which, by the way, was incredible. It's the amount of media that was there for this special day every year. It was awesome. And then I was there as a fan on Friday night, which was the game, honestly, my favorite game since this build started. It was one of the best baseball games I've attended. Luzardo pitched well. It was a pitcher's duel the whole way. JT Chagua bailed him out, and Jazz made an actual nice play in center field to not really Rob Alonso, but he did a good job out there. And yeah, it was a very nice series. I think there's a lot of positives to take out of it, even though they lost 3 out of 4. I think it was fine. They did compete in a majority of the games, but there are some obviously very ugly situations out here that they're going to have to address, particularly the hitting with runners in scoring position. It's like a theme every year, but you got to be happy that they're at least hitting some home runs. They hit 11 all of spring training, and I think they've hit already 5, so that's a good thing. But they're going to have to produce when men are in scoring position. That first inning, as soon as they didn't score more than 1 in the first, I knew it was game over. So they're going to have to work on that. A little bit of an easier test in Minnesota, but not a give-me series at all. So they're going to have to really pull their shit together if they want to win 2 out of 3 there.
Yeah, no, you hit a lot of the points that we hit home. You mentioned one name that I completely forgot to mention, Chagua. That's a ball player right there. He was pretty good. I was impressed. We mentioned Puck obviously being a bright spot in the bullpen, and Brazovan, well, he was solid at points too. This is an improved bullpen, I feel like, outside of the Tanner Scott blunder on opening day. I feel like there was a lot of positives to take away.
Absolutely. Brazovan, I didn't realize how lengthy he can go. You know, he went 2 innings on opening day. It went I think Kelly said it was 3. I don't know if it was 3 exactly today, but Brazovan
roughly. Yeah,
right. And if he can give you a couple of multiple innings, and you have Braxton in there, and you got Chagua who can go back-to-back games, that's that gives you some length, and that was more length than I thought they would get from guys like him today. So honestly, the bullpen has been a very nice surprise for me. So
we can have 1 year of the bullpen not being the problem for the Marlins. I feel like that would definitely be good. But like you said, I mean, there was a lot of good to take away, and it was against the Mets. But you're at the point in this rebuild now where results matter most. So 2 out of 3 is definitely the goal. Imagine a sweep. That would get the people going. But anyways, we'll get to the fans now. Oh, one perk that this is the reason why we bring it up. If you're a super follower, you get first dibs to come talk at the spaces. You get priority. So we'll bring in super subscriber Romeo in here now. This is for questions, and you don't have to be a super subscriber to speak in these spaces. You just get priority. So if you have any questions for us or any notes that we should know that we don't, feel free to request, and we'll take pretty much anyone. So Romeo, what's the question this week?
Question?
I know you got something.
Nothing. It's more like I came up
to grill you.
No, I came up.
So ask away.
It was more like I wasn't really able to watch the games because I got stuck ticket taking. So, when it came to the hitting, the bottom three, like looking at the stats, it just didn't look anything like the box scores and stuff. They really didn't look amazing. Does it as bad as the box score said, or were they giving at least long counts?
I mean, it depends on the day. Skip played a lot of different guys. I think every single position player got to play at some point this weekend, which is good. He's just trying to figure out what works. And I've been saying all offseason that it could be a slow start for that reason. I kind of foresaw this coming. But I'd say the one player that's been batting at the bottom of the order that I'm really concerned about is Joey Wendell. I put out a tweet earlier about just how bad his numbers have been to start the season. And he's been fine defensively, but at the plate, he's batting like he's batting ninth in the order. So I think there's not really a lot of players I'm like really concerned early on about because it's early. First impressions, they matter, but they don't at the same time. I mean, Jacob Stallings hit a home run first game last year, and then he had one of the worst first halves of the season you could imagine. So, but yeah, Joey Wendell's a player I am concerned about. But the bottom of the order, I feel like it's one of the deepest orders the Marlins have had in a while, but it just depends on the situation too as well.
And I was with you on Joey Wendell, but his at-bats were much better today. He was barreling up the ball at least a little bit, and I in the long run, I think he'll be fine. I don't know if Eli's bold prediction about extending him should come to fruition, but I think he'll be okay. He's not going to be great. I think that sooner rather than later they should start. Maybe even try Jazz out there. But yeah, Wendell, I think he was much better today than he was his previous at bats during the season. But I was pleasantly surprised that he was at least decent at the plate today.
That's good.
Do I have any thoughts, or do you have another point to make, Romeo?
Oh no, sorry. My last thing was that I think Wendell, they're doing the team a disservice by hitting him ninth. Obviously, Arise is your number one hitter. I would maybe have Wendell 8th or 7th, just because you don't want to have the two lefties back to back. It's just creating a problem for you, and just giving the other team an opportunity to put in a lefty. I would definitely separate the two lefty bats. So that's my opinion on that.
I know Skip wants to do that like secondary leadoff guy, but you bring up a good point that late in games that sets up the opposing team to take advantage coming out of the bullpen.
And with Birdie, it's perfect. And with Birdie, it's perfect. Like, you have Birdie hit ninth, that's the list.
Batting ninth this weekend.
Right. But with Wendell, and I know he's not like a crazy platoon guy, but he is a little bit. He does struggle against lefties. So I would have him hit 8th, Stallings hit 9th. You can even pitch hit Fortes there, late in the game, and there you go.
I think that last concern is kind of overstated because you're talking about facing back-to-back lefties. That's a factor, obviously, when the opponent goes to the bullpen, makes changes later in those games. I think they're going to just pinch hit for Wendell against most lefties anyway. So I think that point is, once they get to that point where it really matters, that they're probably going to go either with Birdie or whichever one of the righty hitting outfielders isn't in the game to start the game, maybe them coming off the bench, or I mean, they have a bunch of right-handed actually pinch hitting options. It could be Gurriel on a particular day or Fortes if they're not in it as well. So that's not a big deal to me. Hitting ninth is always, it's a really undesirable place no matter who you are. I mean, we talked I get flashbacks to the Lewis Brinson conversation when he was terrible. So they dropped him to ninth in the lineup. And then there was all this complaining about, oh, you know what? I should rephrase that. It was batting 8th. That was back when they had the pitchers hitting. So that's when it was even worse. So, I mean, compared to that, it's not even as big a deal as it used to be batting at the very bottom, just because you don't have an automatic out actually behind you in any sense of that. It's not a big deal. I preach some patience on Wendell just because he has a pretty big track record. At the early portion of just last year, he was good until he got hurt that first time. And then he was never quite the same later in the year. When he's healthy, I think he's going to be pretty solid offensively, and he's healthy for now. Give him a little bit longer of a leash before the overreactions on that.
Right, but yeah, I know they can pinch hit, but I think the point is that they've made that clear that they prefer Wendell at shortstop late in the games. They even, did a defensive switch for him in the ninth inning on Friday night's win. So if you want him to play the whole game and you trust him defensively late in the game, then it would behoove you to have him hit 8 so you don't have to pinch hit for him, when Birdie, because I don't even think they would if it's an 8th inning situation, it's a close game. I don't even think they'd put Birdie in because I don't think Birdie has great stats against lefties anyway. So I think to have him play the whole game without having a lefty behind him would help at least a little bit. But I get what you mean too. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions, Romeo? I actually got a decent amount of requests today. We'll start filing some people in here.
Yeah. Am I bad luck? The days that I've worked, they're 0-3. The one day I don't work, they won.
I think being the Miami Marlins might be the bad luck, actually. Florida Marlins are 1-0 this year, to my knowledge.
Like, it's actually kind of funny. Someone told me to quit on Twitter today so they can start winning. Yeah, being a super subscriber is actually really cool, guys. Before I got to go, you get to go watch Sandy's Beach on Tuesday, and that's what I'm going to do. I found they approved my time off, so I have to talk. There you go. So you get to go do that on a Tuesday, right? It's a good time.
Yeah. Lots of different giveaways and stuff. Always got to keep your eyes peeled. It's only $3 a month. We made it the cheapest we could possibly go.
So, and you can participate in game shows too. It is like I had 3,700, but it's all right. I don't think I have anything else. I really didn't watch any of the games.
It's all good. It's all good. Hey, you won't be working on road games because you work at the ballpark, so you can at least watch all 81 road games this year. Yeah. First one, Thursday. All right. Appreciate you, Romeo. We'll get some more people in here. Let's see if I can remove without kicking them. Okay, cool. There we go. Usually when I remove people, I accidentally kick them out. We're bringing Devin. Devin's always got a hot take for us. He's also a super follower, super subscriber. Devin's also the reason why we have the 2 reasons why JJ Bleday got traded in here right now. Isaac held his jersey that day at FanFest, and Devin asked what a reliever trade package could look like. Then a minute and a half later, Mr. JJ Bleday was an Oakland Athletic. Devin, what do you got for us this week? Who's getting traded right now?
Nothing really trade related, but I was a little surprised with this series. Marlins didn't steal any bases. I know they tried a little, but with so many guys having that double play kind of risk, I'm surprised they didn't put the runners in motion more this series. Wonder if that's going to be something.
That's a good point.
That keeps happening.
It's something that I picked up on early. I think I saw a couple tweets about it, but now you bring it up. Did they steal a single base this week?
Not one.
It's interesting. Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that works. Or maybe we can have someone ask why that wasn't something. You bring up a good point with the double play risk, and there was a handful of double plays this weekend. So, something to definitely watch.
Yeah.
You guys have any thoughts on that?
He ground into a double play. Hey, when you have someone like a Rise, you got to put a runner in motion with him because he can ground into a double play, but he's going to put the ball in play. He's not going to swing and miss. So he's someone that, if you have a runner on with him, he's just like an easy guy to sort of send in motion when he's at the plate, in my opinion. It's an easy one.
Yeah, agreed. And for as much as he got on, I'm surprised that they didn't send him once. I don't know what his speed is like, but
no,
I'm just surprised they didn't even attempt it.
No, yeah, you don't want to send a Rise. You don't send a Rise. You want to send someone with him at the plate.
Okay.
No.
Gotcha. I was not aware of his sprint speed.
40 grade speed, maybe.
40 grade? Oh, boy. Not ideal.
Would you, right, Eli? 40, 45, 50? I don't know. 40? I'd give it 40.
That's a Lewis question. I don't know where he is. He would know.
Lewis.
No,
he's not known for his...
Noah and Hector are both listening. If either one of you guys know, text us. If someone wants to know, I mean, I have my computer right in front of me. I could just Google it. Come on.
But yes, Devin, I do agree with you. They need to be. This team is particular. They have to be putting runners on and running when they are on. Totally agree.
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's kind of going against what they were talking about earlier. They're going to be a small team.
Right. So the thing you think about is that the only guys that really could run realistically are Birdie and Wendell. And they don't start on the same day usually. And then you got maybe Jesus Sanchez could steal a bag. Brian De La Cruz could steal a bag. But Avisail Garcia could steal a bag. But that's about it. You're not going to send Cooper or
like a Stallings. Yeah, no, you're completely right on that aspect of it. But I was just
Stallings did get a double and Cooper did get a triple this weekend. That's crazy. Did they reverse that Cooper triple? I thought they would have. Well, while we try and figure out Arai's sprint speed, okay, I just did get confirmation that it stayed as a triple. Any other questions, Devin, while we've got you here? I know you've got another thought-provoking question like that one. Well, anything about roster construction that you've been wondering about? Anything like that?
No, I share Isaac's concern on Wendell.
I've got the same concern too.
Yes,
it's pretty bad. But he's right. It was a better day. That ball, I forget what inning that was. This was his last at bat, the one that went the right field. Probably should have gotten down. Marte played that perfectly. But yeah, a little concerning.
Yeah, I think Craig was saying something about 2 months, for Avi. I wonder how many other guys are on that similar type of rope, so to speak.
Yeah, Wendell's definitely a trade candidate. You're not going to be able to trade Avisail Garcia. It's just not going to happen unless you attach a prospect. We've been saying that since last year. It'll probably hold true again this year, but Wendell's definitely a trade candidate. A lot of people were surprised that they didn't trade him this offseason, but I think they wanted to see if he could increase his value at all over these next few months because he is one of the very few players on a contract year. And I don't think he's going to be a Miami Marlin in August. I just don't. I feel like he's a prime trade candidate because him and Birdie are blocking a lot of guys in AAA that can potentially play that spot. You got Xavier Edwards. You've got Jacob Amaya. Isaac and I are big fans of him. And Jordan Groshans could even maybe play shortstop if you really need him to. There's a lot of options on the farm right now, and it'd be pretty hectic or chaotic, whatever the word you want it is. It would be detrimental to have Joey Wendell play shortstop in that platoon the entire season if he continues to play like this.
I expected a lot more from him. I thought the hamstring injury really was like the main concern, and I expected a lot more just out of the gate and spring training. It's still early, but we'll see. Yeah,
I mean, I can't make too many season-long conclusions after just 4 games because I don't know what the actual percentage is of the amount of games that just happened, of what that is to the total grand scheme of things. But I'd say the one thing that holds true that I am going to say that I am going to react about, because you have the opening series of reactions. One thing that I am pretty certain about, though, is it might be time to start looking for options to get Avisail Garcia out of the everyday lineup. But it's same stuff already. I'm rooting for him. He did a lot of work to lose weight and stuff, but it's not looking good. see here. All right. Any other questions? We'll bring in some more people in here. Isaac's just listening. All right. Any other final things to say, Devin? You want to pitch for us like Romeo did? Well, what's it like being a super subscriber?
Best thing you can do.
That's right. All right. Well, we appreciate it. We'll get some more people coming in here. And you enjoy your week and go Marlins. All right. We got Ryan. We'll bring him in. We'll get a question from Ryan here. Load him in. All right. Ryan, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, what's up? I just got back. Well, not just got back, but I was at the game earlier, my first game of the season in attendance.
Cool. What'd you think? Any observations? Anything you got the ask from it?
Well, probably not from the stadium experience, but just from the game, from what the Marlins put on the field. Probably one of the worst performances that I've seen from the Marlins in attendance for me, because it just felt like it's so dead. I mean, nothing really happened after the first inning. You thought they had a legitimate shot after they got, I think it was Soler, played it Luis Arraez with the double, and then they scored a run, made it 2-1, the bases loaded. And after that, it was just like nothing happened. So definitely one of the most frustrating games, but the attendance was great. I mean, a ton of Mets fans there today. And it's probably been like that all series long. And it'll definitely get pretty low this week, though, against the Twins, unless you get some Minnesota people traveling in. But it's definitely going to go way down.
Oh, I agree 100%. And the main draw for that one being Pablo, it's a weekday game. So not ideal. Attendance is going to get pretty bad real quick. I absolutely agree. But, yeah, today didn't really go that well after the first inning. It was a tough watch after that. Besides Trevor starting to get it together, I kept the game on. But yeah, it was a frustrating game today for sure. Any questions you might have for us here on the panel?
Yeah, so my question is, what are your thoughts on, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier in the show, I've been here for most of it, but what are your thoughts on AJ Puck long-term as a closer? Because I haven't really heard you guys talk about him as a closer.
We've discussed it. I think you got to see what he can produce. He's only had one appearance so far, so it's tough to make an assessment off just one game, but I think that if I had to pick one guy right now to be the Marlins closer for the next 5 years, it would probably be AJ Puck. It's on the roster, of course, but I like what he's got. I think all of us like what he's shown, and I don't want to put him on that pedestal right now, just because, again, it's really early in the season. But good game on Friday. Would love to see him in another situation like that against the Twins, and I think Skip's also gonna this year not really be so committed to a guys and roles like Mattingly was. And if you see Puck in like the seventh inning in a game that's not really that close, I wouldn't be too alarmed about that. It's all about getting reps early on. I don't know what percentage of the 26 guys on the roster played this weekend, but it was pretty high. It felt like I saw almost everyone. So to answer your question, I feel like he could be the guy. That's the guy I want it to be, but it's also really early, and I'm not going to go say, oh, this guy's the next Mariano Rivera or anything like that.
Yeah, got you. And my other question is, if you had to choose like one infielder right now from, say there was an injury to a middle infielder, who would you call up from AAA right now, just based off
right now?
Yeah, like if you had to call up someone.
If I had to call someone up right this second, I think Xavier Edwards is probably going to be the most game ready. But, I mean, you could also go LeBlanc. But I'm thinking shortstop mostly as well as thinking. But if you're talking about in terms of just someone who could play any position, I would go LeBlanc probably. But you got a lot of good options. Favorite Edwards, but my favorite infield prospect right now is Jacob Amaya. So would love to see him at some point, whether that be at short or I don't know how good he is at third. Isaac probably knows more because Isaac's the Jacob Amaya truther, but he's going to be good. I really hope the Marlins bring him up at some point this year. And then, of course, Jordan Groshans had heck of a debut in September last year. So would be excited to see him as well. So that's kind of why I'm thinking that the Marlins will trade Wendell and maybe even go out on a different direction with Birdie, because you got so many exciting young options down the farm that you got to give them a chance at some point if you're not going to be competitive this year.
Well, yes, I saw the Shrimp scored 12 runs today. Also, just speaking of AAA bats.
Peyton Burdick, he had a good game, I think.
Yeah, I think with the outfield is a little bit more of a relevant thing to say. There's some exciting guys down there, but I think when it comes to Birdie and the minor league options you have in the infield, you hope that one of them becomes like John Birdie, right? Wendell, I feel you, but Jacob Amaya, from what I understand with him, they're tinkering with his swing a little bit. I think he got home run happy last year in his best season in the minors, and I think they do want to give him some time in AAA. I would give it till June 1st, get called up. And yeah, Edward, you're right. Grant Edwards would be the one that would be most major league game ready. Groshans, I don't think he has any business ever playing shortstop at the big league level. I don't think you'll ever see that. But I think they got to give Birdie as much playing time as possible. He's good. I am a big John Birdie fan, and you're praying. I don't think, this is me speaking, I don't think any of the guys in the minors will be as good as John Birdie in the big leagues. That was a fantastic find by, I believe it was Mike Hill at the time. So you got to be careful when we start talking ill about John Birdie, because he's a G.
Good player. Everyone was all up in arms back when the Benintendi rumors were out in 2021, and everyone was like, "You really didn't trade John Birdie for Andrew Benintendi?" Thank God they didn't make that trade.
Well, he's hitting third for the White Sox now. He got a big deal. The White Sox like him.
The White Sox have made some questionable decisions.
They sure have.
I like Andrew Benintendi. He's from my part of town in Cincinnati. He's a good guy, but he is quickly fading as a baseball player, in my opinion. But I'm rooting for him. But I'd also rather have John Birdie, given the Marlins situation, 100%. Anything else you got for us, Brian?
No, that's all I have for today. But thanks for having me on. And if you're not already, go subscribe to Fish Stripes. Go become a super follower, and go check out my YouTube channel and podcast if you want SoFlo Sports. You can check it out. It's in my bio. I have the link to it.
Appreciate it.
Cool. Yes. Thank you for coming on. Go Marlins. All right. We'll go. We have one more request here. If anyone else wants to hop in and ask any questions, feel free. We probably are getting to the end here, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. So we've got Cole coming in here. We've had some good questions so far. I'm glad everyone's dialed in, and then I'm ready for this season again. Cole, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. Coming to you from California.
Nice. I would kill for some warm weather right now like that. But anyways, what do you got for us?
So I've been wondering, is this really the optimal infield position lineup? Because just going through it, yeah. Like for me, on the very minimum, I feel like maybe Wendell and Segura should be swapped.
I don't know if I would want Segura playing short, but I think Wendell's definitely better at third and short. I would agree there.
Yeah, and I think, look, I don't think Jazz should be in center field. I'd rather he be at second than Arise at first, and Coop maybe just being the DH. Or maybe just him and Arise just, switch back and forth between the two positions. But I guess
let me ask you this. What would be, in your mind, the perfect position lineup for the Marlins defensively? In a perfect world, with what's on the roster right now. You've already got it started. You would put Arise at first.
Yeah, I definitely put Arise at first. I put Jazz at second.
And Cooper's at DH.
Yeah, Cooper's DH. Or just switching back and forth with Arise at first.
Yeah.
Look,
play Arise every day, of course. You got to find him some playing time.
No, yes. I think he needs to be in the batting order every single day that he's healthy.
Yeah.
At the very minimum.
Well, what would you do at short then? Would you bring up Jose Iglesias maybe? Would you play Birdie there every day?
Well, there was kind of a part two to this, and that's I kind of feel like Wendell just might be the odd man out, where it might be just best to like get him off the team for like a middling prospect, or use him to package him and something else to get Avi off the team, and like call up a LeBlanc or call up an Iglesias just to kind of fill that hole. I just don't think he's really part of the long term, plans of this team.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be on the roster in August. I don't think he will. That's just me personally, but it's a safe assumption that he's probably a deadline candidate. So what do you go with third? Did you keep Cigarette third? How do you get?
I mean, either Cigarette
at second, and maybe you try Jazz at short.
I feel like Jazz at short already went pretty badly last year, so that's why I want Jazz at second more than anything. Okay. I feel like that was like he's athletic, but he didn't have the instincts at short, or like kind of really the command for it in the same way that like a Mickey Rowe did, or really anyone else. I think calling up LeBlanc for third and Segura at short, or keeping Segura at third and calling up Iglesias would be a better solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess my point with that was it's just they're not really in an ideal position defensively right now. They got too many cooks in the kitchen. This is basically where they're at. So many guys just playing out of position, and really, even in a perfect world, there's still going to be someone who's not been playing at their primary position or what they should be playing right now. So it's tough, and I think one solution to that is eventually getting rid of Joey Wendell, but it would be tough. I don't even know what I would do if I was given full reins to the Marlins lineup and I was told, hey, figure out who's playing in what position today. It's a tough call for sure. And I don't know what the direction should be from here, because there's a lot of guys early on that you're just looking at like, how are they going to play 162 games at that position?
Yeah. Also, a bit curious, why do you think the Marlins didn't go after Christian Pace?
Pache.
He's not good. They already are pretty filled up. But my simple explanation is he's not a good baseball player.
Yeah, he can't hit, and more importantly, he's out of minor league options. So to acquire him would mean putting him directly on the big league roster. You can't even send him down to AAA. I don't see how is he going to add more value to the team than anybody who is currently on the big league roster? I didn't really see it just because of how awful his bat is. And even as a base runner, doesn't do enough to like make up for it on the few occasions that he does get on base. That's the type of player that once he reaches free agency, signing him to a minor league deal, that could never hurt. In terms of actually going out and getting him, I don't think that's just incredibly desperate. I don't think that would have solved anything just because of how much negativity cancels out his center field defense.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't see how he would be an upgrade over either one of Jesus Sanchez or Brian De La Cruz or Peyton Burdick right now. He would have a lot of fun with the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, but he can't even go because he's out of options.
Does that matter, though, that he's out of minor league options now that he already got DFA? Like, is that even relevant to him anymore?
Well, yeah, to be clear, if they went out and get him, they'd have to like temporarily put him on the 40-man roster. And then they could immediately DFA him again and just hope that he doesn't get claimed by anybody else. And then at that point, you can what's the word I'm looking for? Outright him to the minors once he clears waivers. So you could, do all that. You just have to temporarily open up a space on the 40-man to acquire him in the first place. And then you could go through that. I'm just not I'm not even that interested in him. Just we've seen a lot that just suggests that he can't do anything offensively to make him playable. Is he really that much different than a left-handed hitting Victor Mesa? There's just a lot in common there. Like if they valued center field defense that much and didn't care about anything else, then they could bring up Victor. But the problem is there's just so many other limitations in the profile that overall that player is just not going to help you win games.
And if they really cared about center field and actually having a respectful center fielder, they could have made a trade or they could have signed someone. They decided to let their second baseman step up because he's a great leader and decide, hey, I want to play center field this year. I'll step up instead of actually going and spending the money on that. And instead, they just kept getting more infielders. So it was a questionable plan of attack for the Marlins this offseason. But yeah, to answer your question, it's a variety of factors between one, he's not a good baseball player. Two, he's out of minor league options. Three, there just really isn't a fit.
Yeah, I get you. I know he was, as of recent, like 2021 was a top tier prospect. So I just feel like maybe there was a better ceiling, but
yeah. And look, if the Marlins hitting development was any better, sure. Like if he were in a pitcher role, yeah, I'd say go get him because a lot of people said, hey, maybe the Marlins could do that with Alex Reyes. I'd say Alex Reyes is a good pitching comp to what Pache is a hitter, and then AJ Puck was also a top prospect at one point, and he kind of slid off, and the Marlins got him, and now there's a lot of hope that they can fix him as well. So I just don't think him and the Marlins were a good fit at all. Probably would have hurt his career more than helped it, in all honesty.
I guess my last
anything else for us?
Yeah, I had one last big question, which was, what was up with all the walks that we saw this entire series? Because it felt very uncommon and uncharacteristic of even like a Sandy.
It's a good question. Command was off for a lot of guys. I think Luzardo and a few of the bullpen guys were the only guys that really had their command working. Trevor was obviously rattled in that first inning, but he got it together after. Ever Cabrera and Sandy were both struggling with command pretty much their entire starts. Edward more than anyone. That was concerning to see, but yeah, just a variety of factors. I thought both catchers called good games this weekend. I think in terms of game management, the Marlins have two pretty good catchers at that. Of course, Stallings has other flaws. Nick Fortes has some areas he can improve on, but he's still young. And Stallings had a lot of praise for him. If you watched any of the broadcasts this weekend, Kelly Sacco had the report on that Stallings is really proud of how far Nick Fortes has come. He's really impressive how good of a learner he is at such a young age and how he acts like a veteran catcher. He's in like his mid-20s. So I feel like the Marlins are in good hands there. But to answer your question, truthfully, it's just command issues. But it's early on. You can't look at it too much.
And the pitch clock?
Sandy Alcantara, yeah, that's another good point. Guys are trying to get adjusted. Maybe you're rushing it too much. But you got 158 games left. They can settle in. You got 3 more games in Lone Depot. A lot of time to figure it out. And early in the season, you can't look too much at it because then again, this is going to be like the talking point forever when someone has a bad first start to the season. Like Sandy had a horrific start against the Giants last year opening day, and he was the unanimous NL Cy Young. So I wouldn't look into it too much. I think maybe Ever Cabrera, if he has another start like that, I would begin to get a little concerned. But just early on, adjustments, things like that, not crazy.
Well, I was wondering if Cabrera was hurt by having Fortes catch for him, and just in terms of framing and nerves,
No.
I'll let Isaac take this one.
No, not at all. Fortes, if anything, did him some favors there, getting him some strike calls because he could have walked 7.
Yeah, I didn't in this whole series. I didn't see very many like borderline pitches not go their way. Like this was all the walks that they gave out. Almost all of them were kind of well deserved. It was legitimately poorly located pitches throughout almost all the pitching staff. It wasn't really the ump didn't have much to play this. I'd say one thing that may have factored in is just the opponent. Like this Mets team is a pretty disciplined team where if you throw these same pitches to a different opponent, then you get probably a lot more chases out of the zone on those same pitches. This is a very experienced team. Bring back almost all their guys from last year that were above average in walks. Also, the fact that hit by pitches are like the specialty of this Mets team. That is, they're the league leaders in hit by pitches last year, and I'm sure they will be this year. Those are just the players that they have. So when you miss really badly with just one pitch, then that's just as bad as an outright walk in this case. So I think today there were 3 hit by pitches, and there were several others in the previous games as well. So the opponent had a little bit to do with that as well. It's certainly something to watch moving forward when they face these other teams. If you see the the second time through the rotation with all these guys, then maybe it's something we look into more carefully.
Agreed. I will second that. Any other thoughts? Will probably be our last speaker unless someone requests last second. We'll take questions for anyone.
No, I don't got any other questions.
Marlins fan. Nah, I appreciate it. Some good questions. You have yourself a good week and go Marlins.
Yeah, go Marlins.
All right. Any last requests for anyone? Get them in right now. Last calls here. We'll have another one of these at 7 o'clock next week. Hopefully to talk about some series wins this time around. We got some series preview shows throughout the week. Got one at 5:30 tomorrow. I don't know what we're going to do for the Mets one yet, with that being a weird time. Of course, lots of podcasts coming out throughout the week. Just content machines here at Fish Strikes. Make sure to look for the recaps. We got all these guys credentialed on site. They've been working hard. Appreciate what all these guys have been doing for us. And if no one else has anything, we'll wrap this thing up and go Marlins.
You can give your prediction for tomorrow night's national championship game if you'd like.
Okay, I'll get my prediction. The UConn 74, San Diego State 54. I don't think it's going to be close. We have a request. We have a request. Hold on.
Oh no!
This is not a troll. I've been pretty conscientious of that, but I looked at the bio, saw Miami in there. If we have a question, we'll take one more. This will be our last one. How are we doing? You were on the floor, sir. 3 or 5, dummy. I hope I said that right.
He's a dummy. Claudia, you don't have a question, bro? What's up with that?
Where's Sean at? Well, Tanner's in here too. What's up, Tanner? He nailed the Rise prediction. He was balling this weekend.
I didn't know how many units Tanner is up this weekend.
It's probably too many. I know he had himself a good opening week in Final Four, I'm sure. I wouldn't expect anything different. How are we doing?
Hey guys, I have a real quick question for your thoughts on the lack of runs and all the men on all the left on base that we've seen these first 4 games. Would it make any sense to maybe flip the lineup up a little bit? Maybe have Jazz 1, Segura 2, and Arraez 3 with all the contact he's making. Maybe we can get some of these runs across. Just your thoughts on that would be great.
Yeah, I think Skip's going to rotate a lot of different lineups. We're going to see a lot of different looks early on. He's just going to try and see what fits. I've been saying it all last. I said it again earlier in the space that I think it could be a slow start for the Marlins because it's going to be early on, just trying to figure out what works. But it could be a fun summer. I trust Skip Schumacher to find something that works in terms of lineups and rotations and all that.
I think some of the things that do work and that will stay the same is Luis Arraez at 1 and Jazz Chisholm either 2, 3, 4, or 5. I think they want him in a run-producing spot. I don't think they want to try him leading off anymore. The area that I can see them improving on when it comes to lineup construction is them having guys like Avi and Soler back to back. I just don't understand that whatsoever. You have guys that are prone to the strikeout, and you would want to have someone like either when it comes to Gurriel or Birdie or even Wendell in between them to sort of offset the amount of strikeouts you'll get. I know on opening day, I believe they had Soler and Avi back-to-back. I think he sort of learned his lesson there, but I think that's where you can see an improvement when it comes to constructing this lineup because you do have a lot of strikeout opportunities here. Even Cooper out at in there that you just don't want Avi, Cooper, Soler back-to-back. It's all right-handed hitters that are sort of similar in their own way. You want someone sandwiched in between them, in my opinion, to sort of, just in case. So you had Jesus Sanchez behind, who was it today? Gurriel. That was a good one, but they all ended up striking out. He couldn't put the ball in play. Birdie would have been, maybe better to have ahead of Sanchez in that situation. So I would maybe avoid having the big guys in Soler, Avi back-to-back. That would be my main criticism for it.
Yeah, I would second that. It's the same story, different year for the runners in score position stuff. It's frustrating to say the least.
Yeah. How about with Jazz struggling in center field? Do you think at some point that may start to affect him at the plate?
Honestly, no, because Jazz, that is one of the most confident individuals I've seen, not just in sports, but in life. That guy is always going to feed off the positive energy he generates for himself. He's always going to have something to prove against someone else. That's just the way he is. But I don't think it's going to get any better in center field, probably. Maybe it does. I don't know. But there was some concerns this weekend, especially today, especially last night. You even had one pickup on Friday, arguably one on Thursday. So there's something for every day. It's a learning process for sure. But I thought you were going to ask if I foresaw him staying in that spot the entire season. And my answer to that would have been, I don't know. I don't know if he stays there the entire season or not. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate the show.
Yeah, appreciate it. Some good questions. Thank you very much.
You guys have a nice evening.
All right, we're bringing Tanner here. I want to know how many units he's up this weekend, I should say. Loading in. There you go. What's up, Tanner?
Guys, how crazy is it that 9 for 16 actually happened?
He's a good baseball player. He got lucky on a couple of those, but this is the best hitter the Marlins have had in a long, long time. He's so much fun to watch.
He played well in the field too. I felt like he was just a great 2A addition.
Outside of all the guys playing out of position for the first time this week, I feel like he played the best. There wasn't a lot of problems. Maybe opening day when that one ball got past him and Wendell. Other than that,
no. Arise has been phenomenal. He has looked like wow. Arise has been phenomenal at second base. You cannot have a single complaint about that man at all. It's going to be his defense has been as good as his offense, and that's saying something.
Yeah. I just wanted to also pop in. I heard you guys were like, I don't know how many units Tanner's up this weekend. Well, nothing because I bet the Fish every day, and they lose 3 out of 4. Friggin' down.
That'll happen.
Yeah, it happens. It's gonna happen the rest of the weekend. I just wanted to pop in and say hi. Go Fish. Talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.
Right.
What's your national championship prediction? Do we get it first, or is Action Network get it first?
I haven't really decided yet, but I think I'm going to be on San Diego State +8. That number is way too high. It should be like 4.
It has moved a lot. It opened at like 6, right?
It opened at like 6.5 and went up, and everyone's just hammering. I think that's a crazy line. I mean, the projections are like closer to a pick 'em. So, yeah, hot tip of the day. Take the Aztecs.
I'll have to think about that one. I've been really high on UConn, but I've got to think about it now. Well, appreciate it.
Yeah, talk to you guys soon. Go Fish.
Yeah.
This has no relevance whatsoever. But speaking of UConn, does Maya Moore still play in the WNBA?
No, she just retired.
No way. She was such a god at UConn. Okay, sorry.
I put out a tweet earlier. We're going to say on one more UConn thing. I think Caitlin Clark should pull Kevin Durant and go transfer to UConn this offseason. That would break the league.
I don't know who that is, but sure.
You haven't seen her at all? Like through the news this weekend, she's literally like blowing up.
Oh, that's the girl.
Yeah. She's been going nuts. That was a fun game to watch today. All right. Any last requests? I would imagine not. Unless Sean's lurking. I know Sean might have something. I'll leave the door open. But anyways, like I said, lots of content coming throughout the week between podcasts, written recaps. We got series prediction shows, series preview shows, all sorts of stuff. We'll have another one of these 7 o'clock next Sunday. Thank you guys all for coming out, and go Marlins.